Ben-Veniste.
Let me follow up on Senator Gorton's question, but before I do, I would be remiss if I did not, as a native New Yorker, express my appreciation to the NYPD and the New York Fire Department for the extraordinary efforts that were made on 9/11. And while we hope to learn from the imperfections that existed systemically at that time and improve our ability to react to disasters, and hope that New York, as it has been for many, many decades, the beacon of cutting-edge technology and practice for the rest of the country. At this point, I can only say that I am humbled by the individual efforts of heroism that we have seen recounted time and time again in looking at the history of 9/11.
Thank you, sir.
And with respect to the question that Senator Gorton asked, I think the legitimate follow-up is, notwithstanding what was in place on September 11, 2001, regarding 911, and recognizing that this is the place that we are all trained to go to find out information and to report information. So it's an interactive process. When you call 911, it's something bad happened, what do we do? The what do we do part was obviously lacking, as far as we can tell, on 9/11, so that people who were calling in information, which other people would benefit from knowing on that date, were not having that information processed in an interactive, effective way. Going forward, does it not make sense, as Senator Gorton suggested, that a process be in place so that in circumstances of significant emergency, 911 becomes the go-to place where not only you report information, but you receive information, that the 911 supervisors become the contact point for receiving instructions, which should then be given to callers who call in such circumstances.
I think, sir, that should be the case. There is two elements to 9/11. One is the operators. The second element is the dispatchers. There's a police supervisor that oversees them. I honestly don't believe that it should be that police supervisor that acts in the capacity that you're talking about at this point. But I think in an emergency such as this, or a major crisis, there has to be an element, or should be an element, possibly put in place, that a command-level police supervisor winds up in 911 to interact with the command-level personnel in the field. And that way there's direct communications, command to command, and that information can be relayed down to the operators and the dispatchers. Operators dealing with the people calling in, dispatchers dealing with the command and the field personnel in the field. I think that may be feasible. Yes, sir.
And, Commissioner, should not that individual, who would then be charged with synthesizing information, have authority to receive, and should in fact be receiving, multi-source information, not just from one department, at least under the current system, that can then be integrated and passed along to 911 operators so that they can provide effective information to people calling in?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Sheirer.
I would just like to add that in a post 9/11 world, where the prospect of having these types of events of this magnitude, I don't believe any time in our history did we have 3 5-alarm fires plus additional 2-alarm fire in a 16-acre area with tens of thousands of people calling, not only from within the complex, but from miles and miles away. I don't know if there is any communication system in existence that could handle that kind of activity.
Well, Mr. Sheirer,
This is the last
it
question.
could be
Commissioner.
worse. It could be worse in the future.
Yes.
So that we
Yeah.
need to plan for an emergency system that will be able to respond effectively to advising people, and it may be that there are other going over emergency networks, radio networks, internet networks, a multimedia response to providing information such as we have had in place in this country for a long time, but it needs to be accessed and accessible,
I
it
believe-
seems to me.
I believe that's being worked upon, but you're absolutely correct. We need a way to get out mass information quickly, accurately, and if you can't talk to each individual person, there has to be a way to try and make sure that you can convey the situation and what to do.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.